What's up, everybody? Welcome again to the FNL postgame podcast. Dan Lindblad over here. I got Caden McFarland
What's going on?
hanging out behind the mic.
Hey, thank you to you for coming in on your day off
anything
and
for
rigging
people
up
at home.
the setup here in our podcast room. I appreciate that. So we can chop it up, right? Talking about the high school football weekend that was. You were in Stillwater last night. I was in Norman. Those are long days.
Yes, they are.
And so once again, thank you for coming in on your day off. But let's start with our game of the week. And
the day becomes even longer whenever OSU plays like they played.
Whoo! Buddy,
Nice.
that's its own podcast.
Yeah.
When we find some time, we're gonna do a little rant style podcast. Maybe as the year goes on, talking college football as well. But for now, we're talking about high school football week 1. Let's start with our game of the week. I said we would go with Jinx first, but let's start with the winners. The Owasso Rams came out slinging. You talked to both coaches, Bill Blankenship and Keith Riggs, going into this game, which was not by any means like do or die.
Right.
But nobody wants to start 0-2. Two proud programs who have combined to win 4 of the last 6 state titles in Class 6A1. Neither one of those teams wanted to start 0-2, but clearly it ended up being a close game. Give Jenks all the credit in the world for the second half rally, but Owasso had the better plan and just the better play early in this ballgame.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, neither team, neither coach, neither players were acting like the sky's falling if you go down 0-2.
Sure.
You don't want to be there. It's the sky's not falling on either team. Both of them know that they're going to be able to make a run in district. Both coaches are fantastic, and both of them knew that they were going to be able to figure this thing out. Still, it was kind of funny because I was asking them, you're trying to ask anything you can about starting 0-2 versus 1-1 and playing the Big Five that we call them here in the Tulsa area. And they're like, yeah, I mean, these games really don't matter at the end of the day. Like,
right.
We're all prepping for district play, and we're prepping to make a run come October, November, and into December.
Yeah, there is a sense in which they don't matter. There is a sense in which they really, really do. And I think Owasso's performance showed this game meant a lot to them. That is the season opener for a proud program that's won a couple of state titles here in recent years. You're taking on this team. It seems like they play close, low-scoring games more often than not. And so because that's what we predicted and called for, of course, it went the other way. And your final score ends up being 34. And here's the thing. The Owasso passing game did not look very good at all in week 0. And I think we forget, one, Bixby is just a wrecking ball at the moment. But 2, it's week 0. These guys only have 2.5 weeks of training camp, if you will. It was 1,000 degrees on the Chapman Stadium turf on August the 25th. The Owasso passing game looked really, really good here in game 2 against a Jinx defense. I mean, I know the personnel they've got there. Adam Gaylor dialing that stuff up, like that is a really fine defense. And Knox Dyson throws for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. He fed Jakari Thomas early, who is a handful to deal with. I think he had 7 receptions probably in the first 2 or 3 drives. Ends the night with 11 receptions. And then it was Deuce Chalk, who's the bigger, looks like a D1 guy to me, who had just a marvelous day, nearly 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. And so the Owasso passing game really kicked it into high gear. And that little glimpse gives you an idea of kind of what the ceiling could be for this team, right? They are not the team.
No.
They at least, certainly come November and December, they're not going to be the team that we saw in week 0, nothing close to it. And already in week 1, huge improvement from the Rams.
And I've already talked to Jakari twice now. I mean, I talked to him preseason camp, and then I talked to him before the Jinx game.
Your close personal friend, Jakari.
Quickly become one of my favorite dudes to cover. Like, he's always got a smile on his face, and he's all like, he walks up to you and you hate to do it, but we have to do it because the camera has to be a certain height. Jakari's not the tallest fellow around, but he just plays with so much heart, and he plays like he's not going to be one of the shortest guys on the field. So I just love that about him.
Yeah, it was a good performance for Owasso, putting 34 points on the board against Jinx. The Trojans are 0-2 for the 4th time in 55 years. We have seen this a couple of times in recent years, and typically, they've bounced back. I think it was in 2017, maybe Alan Trimble's final season, right? They started 0-4, I think. Ended up in the state semifinals. A couple of years before that, they lost to a couple of tough Texas teams, and then I think ran the table one state. But this has not happened to this program very often. They've not been in this situation, and now you're hosting Union next week in the Backyard Bowl. If you don't play better than you've played in the first 2 weeks, we're going to be talking about Jenks at 0-3. You're concerned by the first half in which your offense is able to muster only 65 total yards. But I'm sure they are heartened by the fact that they were able to score 4 second-half touchdowns and make this thing a ballgame.
And that's kind of, I guess it can give you a little bit of hope, but also maybe a little bit worrisome that they haven't put a complete game together.
No doubt, yeah.
You know, they've played one half the first game, they played one half the second game. So if they put it together, they're still going to be a beast. It's just finding ways to put it together and making what you do in the first half, what you do in the second half, or vice versa, depending on which way you look at that Owasso game.
I'm not going to pretend to know why this has been the case. I'm just going to state it. You know, since I've been here, since he's become head coach, Keith Riggs has not been the best coach in the state of Oklahoma in the month of August or September. Like, Jenks has had some slow starts. I remember well when Bixby came into Jenks a few years ago and beat them 57-7. And I believe the Trojans ended up that season in the Class 6A1 state title game. And then I think they lost to Bixby again the next year in either August or September and went on to win the Class 6A1 state title. We've seen them improve as much or more than anybody, start of year to end of year in recent seasons. And there hasn't been a Keith Riggs season yet where I've thought he did not get the most out of that roster that he possibly could. So I don't know after 2 games exactly what the ceiling is for Jenks, but I do trust that they're going to get really close to it by the end of the year. The question is, and granted, again, next week, non-district, so it's not the most important thing, but at some point, it begins to affect playoff seeding if you don't get this sorted out really quickly.
Right.
You have this week, and then you have the bye week, and then they all begin to matter. And so a lot of good pieces on that defense, and there's some good pieces on that offense as well, and you do hope that they figured some things out in the second half against Owasso.
But as you mentioned, it does not get any easier next week.
Nope.
As Union in that backyard bowl that, you know, is so historic in itself. Maybe, and I'm interested when we talk to the coaches coming up this week, is it still as special as it used to be? It kind of feels like with the emergence of Bixby, maybe in the Battle of the Burbs and that kind of rivalry, it feels like it's kind of a little bit of a backseat now.
Well, look,
but it's still special.
Yeah,
still special.
it's we are. I'm glad you brought that up. It's a little bit tricky to talk about. There is a sense in which Jenks Union is simply the most iconic 2 names of schools that you can put together in this state. Period. End of story. That said, because they don't play it at TU anymore, it is not necessarily the most highly attended high school football game in the state every year, which it was for a very long time.
And we think of back in the days when it was on the NFL films and everybody was doing stories on it.
Absolutely. And I mean, there were 2 solid decades in a row where one of these teams won the state title every single season, and that's different. And you have a different team at the very top, obviously, in Bixby. But look, Union is probably not far behind. We did not get to see this matchup last year. Bixby and Union don't play each other in the regular season. We assume they were on a collision course for the state title game last year. It didn't happen as Union was upset in the 6 overtime thriller by Owasso. But this is now 19 straight regular season victories as Union just beat Broken Arrow last week. And I think they've got the best quarterback in the state in Shaker Isaac, who threw for 313 yards and 4 touchdowns in that hard-fought win over BA. Let's dive into that. Quickly on BA, what a great sign. We didn't know exactly what we were looking at after some key preseason injuries and then the absolute blowout loss to Springdale in the season opener at home. Much like Owasso, they looked very different in week 1. It actually led this ball game with Union 17-14 at the half and just played with such great spirit. It was really good to see, heartened by, I would still slot them 5th, but heartened by the performance by Broken Arrow. And then Union really did play a great second half. The defense able to pull off the shutout and Shaker doing what Shaker does. They have, I don't want to say a puncher's chance because they're much, much better than that cliche would lead you to believe. Bixby's 1, Union's 2, but I think Union's got the best quarterback. And so that gives you a great shot anytime.
Yeah, and I think if you would have told me that BA would not score in the second half against that high-powered Union offense, I mean, I would have said, okay, 25, 30-point loss, just because Union can put up points in a hurry. Yeah. So for it to be a 10-point loss after what happened the week before against Bentonville, one of the teams from Arkansas, to lose 41-0, and then come back against your rival and hold the lead in the second quarter, not score in the second half, but still keep it to 10 points and still have a chance the entire game, that's something that you can build on as you start moving forward. And again, we're talking non-district versus district play. That's something you can start rolling toward. Hey, guys, we have found something here. Just believe in it. We had a lot of tough luck in the preseason. Like you said, those injuries. So we found something that we can roll into, and we have a little bit of momentum going our way when it was starting to look really bleak.
Sure. It looks like Bixby has superior line play, but I think Union's got the best quarterback and skill position talent of our teams. And it'll be interesting to see if that line play gets better and better for Union as the season goes on. What can they become? That ceiling is still really, really high. So once again, Jinx Union at Allen Trimble Stadium this week. That'll be our FNL game of the week.
That's going to be a lot of fun.
As always, we look forward to it. And here's the thing. Kewan Jones is probably, at least in my mind, he's got the most legendary highlight in Jinx Union history. 23 years after that incredible final minute, 80-yard touchdown catch and run to beat Union, his son is playing in this ball game, transferring from Broken Arrow to Jinx. Kate, hopefully we can catch up with Kewan sometime this week or on Friday to preview that matchup. Cannot wait for Jinx Union. Let's get into our top plays of the week. Top plays, here it is, number 5. Dan, take it away.
I love that. All right, we're going to go out Thursday night game. Hominy taking on Cleveland, and look at Blaine Hipp, 6'4". He skies up one-handed, grabs the ball, brings it back in for the interception. Also had a nice touchdown in that one. But check out the one-handed pick as Hominy goes on to beat Cleveland.
Look, Ma, one hand. Number 4, Muskogee. You know this guy, Bird Ficklin, Jamarian Ficklin, up top for Caden McGee. It was in a 57-0 Muskogee victory over Putnam City. I get Mike Vick vibes when I watch Ficklin throw the ball. He loves the deep ball. They get to play Carl Albert next week. What a monster matchup. Muskogee and Carl Albert cannot wait.
That one's going to be a lot of fun. Check out this from our Friday Night Live game of the week. Knox Dyson heaves it to Deuce Chalk, and he mosses the defender and then takes it in for a touchdown. We'll get a closer look at it with a little bit of slow-mo. Keeps his concentration over the helmet catch, and then the run to go with it as, again, Owasso goes on to beat Jinx. And at number 2, we're going to dive into the special teams back a little bit. First, we have one of our favorite names, Lolo Bell from Coweta. Takes the kick return, races along the far side, makes a couple guys miss, and there's nothing but turf in front of him as he takes it in for the touchdown. But not to be outdone, we have Matson Swanson from Wagner. Again, this is a big rivalry game. He contemplates taking the punt, decides to go for it, immediately turns on the Jets, makes 3 or 4 Coweta Tigers miss, and then he's off to the races for a touchdown. A little special teams flair on the top plays from both Coweta and Wagner, Lolo Bell and Matson Swanson.
And number 1, what drama, what controversy. Final play of the half between Union and Broken Arrow. Cooper Bates trying to sneak it in, I believe, on 4th and goal from the 1. He fumbles. None of us knew that. You see the ball squirt out if you're watching the video. Caleb Barnett, Johnny on the spot, picks it up on the goal line for a touchdown. Kirk Frederick not happy about it. Kind of hilarious to watch the celebration because it was a great goal line stand for Union, or so they thought. Meanwhile, the ball is right behind everybody, just sitting there for a couple of seconds. Caleb Barnett picks it up for the touchdown. Broken Arrow celebrates going into the halftime locker room with a 17-14 lead. All right, game balls time, everybody. Game balls. One of these players will be crowned our FNL Player of the Week this Thursday. One of them gets the opportunity to chat with a young man by the name of Dan Lindblad sometime this week. How about it? Up first, Deuce Chalk. We talked about him a couple times already in this show. 5 catches, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was uncoverable. He was fantastic against a really great Jinx defense. Owasso needed it from the passing game, and they got it, thanks in large part to an elite name, Deuce Chalk. Metro Christian quarterback Jackson Grimes, how about 398 yards, 4 touchdowns? You know they can sling it around there at Metro Christian. Metro beating Noah. Danny Okoye. Yeah, you did the story on him in the preseason, recruited by everybody. Oklahoma, Alabama, a couple of his finalists. He was injured in this ball game. I know I saw him on the sideline at OU yesterday. Didn't seem to be in too bad a shape, so I don't know how long he might be out.
And I believe I saw the play where he got injured on. I don't know what had happened, but I saw him go off the field visibly frustrated. Okay. At that point, we're trying to race back and get highlights in, so I do not know if he played the rest of the game, but I did see him leave the field, and he was clearly frustrated.
All right. We are thinking of Danny. Alex Shieldknight, another guy who likes to rush the passer, Wagner zone. How about 4 sacks in that win over Coweta? It was a 24-7 Bulldogs victory. Alex Shieldknight, 4 sacks. He gets a game ball. Game ball for Marco Smith, Sepulpa running back, 242 yards, 4 touchdowns, including the game-winning score with 19 seconds left. Sepulpa, remember last week against Sand Springs, they ran out to the big lead and then lost it 64-54. They were playing from behind all night against Tahlequah, but at the very end, that final touchdown, they defeat the Tigers 41-38. This Sepulpa offense can put up some points, folks. And that leads us to not a game ball here, but just one final game to note that was really great over the weekend. Claremore beats Bartlesville 28-27. Micah Teal with a 19-yard touchdown run with 36 seconds left to give the Zebras the victory. So we had a couple of great games here in week 1. Now everybody in action. It was, I don't know, a little more than half the state probably in action on week 0, but now it's an all-skate. Here we go. The high school football season in full swing. And, of course, this week a monster week. Jenks Union, Broken Arrow Owasso, Muskogee Carl Albert. You could go on and on down the list. A lot of great Green Country teams squaring off Friday night. Check out the highlights at 10:15, and we'll be live from Jenks at 5 and 6.
I want to tell this story because
Please.
if you watch the Friday night live highlight show, what time? 10:15.
10:15, buddy.
10:15.
10:15.
On Channel 2. I knew that part.
That's right.
So we go to some of these games, right? And sometimes we show up in the first quarter, beginning of first quarter, halftime.
Get there when we
show
can get
up.
there, baby.
So I show up to Metro Christian about 10 seconds before halftime, which is the
That's
worst time.
That's the worst.
Because but they were in the red zone. I was like, okay, we'll see what we can get.
Maybe.
Here. Didn't get anything.
No.
So then they go to halftime. Well, then, okay, I'm starting to think, let's get some second half highlights. And so I roll up, and Coach McCoy,
Jared McCoy,
sitting there, he gathers his team around.
That's right.
Metro Christian's younger team this year. So he gathers his team around, and I think he said something along the lines of, seniors, I said I wasn't going to do it, but we need to loosen up a little bit.
Okay.
And so he brings everybody in, and I guess he's been telling these jokes for years.
Okay.
To his players, either
In
at
huddles,
halftime.
to loosen them up. Yep.
Yeah. So this is on the field. So I'm sitting there, I'm getting video for a little intro shot, and he says, I'm going to tell a joke for you. So then my ears kind of perk up.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, okay,
I
what's
don't hear
going on
this
here?
every week.
And he goes, why do you never date a tennis player?
Why should you never date a tennis player, kids?
And right then I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm very intrigued.
This
Why
could
should
go
you-
many directions.
And then he just says, because love means nothing to them.
Nice.
And
Where's the rim shot?
Everybody was, it
That's
was
funny.
more sarcastic laughter than anything
Kids.
else. But
They don't appreciate that joke. Hey, that's good.
That's good.
I thought you were just telling that joke on your own for some reason in the highlights.
Oh,
I
I'm not
wasn't
that
really
clever.
following it live. And then when you told me that this is actually what Jared said to his players, first of all, I thought the joke was great. First time I heard it.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard that in my life.
No.
You hadn't either?
and now
Love means nothing.
I
to them.
want to be at every huddle for Metro Christian from here on
Yeah,
out because I
wanna
want to
hear
hear
the
more.
jokes.
If that's the
Let's
quality,
make that happen. Let's see if we can get Jared on the podcast at
Okay.
some point this year. We'll go out and do an interview with him,
Yeah.
and we'll explore the joke thing. I
love
like it. I
I'm
like
all
it.
for it.
Here, folks, it's the FNL postgame podcast. You're learning what it's all about. Right along with us,
15 seconds to 20-minute mark. We got 15 seconds, Caden.
because love means nothing to them. Well done. Dan, thank you so much again for coming in on your day off and putting this all together. We'll do it again next week as we'll have a lot to talk about. It's the FNL postgame podcast. Until next time.